What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, I had to make this video and talk about this. There's a lot of chatter in the YouTube boxing community amongst fans, and that's a good thing. That's about Danny Garcia, Lucas Matthysse. I mean, it's almost a 50-50. There's a lot of people that are like Swift all day. A lot of people that says Lucas will knock Danny Garcia out, and that just lets you know how monumental this matchup is because you have conflicting sides. This is Bloods and Crips. This is East versus West. There's a split. And again, that just goes to show you that this is a very solid matchup. Otherwise, you wouldn't see such a split where people are so torn and don't know who to pick. Like I said, from the moment this was announced, before it was announced, this is the fight that needs to happen. It's really the only fight at 140 that actually means something. Lucas Matthysse beat Lamont Peterson, and he made it look easy. Danny Garcia beat all the tests he had in front of him. He took on a seasoned person like Zab Judah, whose style should have been horrific for a fighter like Danny Garcia based on the way he fights. And he passed that test. So these are the only guys that are really remaining in the division at 140 that make sense to be fighting. A Jose just lost again to Hank Lundy. He was a fighter who was avoided in the mandatory. Lucas Matthysse already beat him. So I don't really know where his career is going to go. Adrian Broner bypassed the whole 140-pound division because everyone was locked up. He went to 147. Now they're trying to make a Marcos Maidana fight. Robert Guerrero and Broner got into it again via Twitter. And that's another fight I know fans would like to see, but that would probably take place at 147, where both fighters have fought. Amir Khan's moving up, most likely to face Devin Alexander at 147. And again, these are the top dogs, and it makes sense. Zab Judah didn't beat Danny Garcia, so a Lucas Matthysse rematch doesn't really make sense. I mean, it would be cool to see, just to see how Zab Judah does, because the first one was controversial, but Zab doesn't really bring anything to the table in terms of he doesn't have a belt. He lost his last fight. So, I mean, he doesn't really... The fight I would definitely watch, especially since the first one was so controversial, but does it make sense? No. Again, this is the fight that makes the most sense. What I want to talk to you guys about is with this matchup and the split views and the split opinions of what's going to happen in this fight, I want to assess both fighters and who has the better resume in your opinion. You have Danny Garcia, someone who's always remained pretty much the underdog in situations. He took on Eric Morales. He was little known in the pro boxing world. Diehard fans might have known who he was, or some people who follow the amateurs, but he didn't have a celebrated name. Even in the Eric Morales first fight, he didn't look all that great. I mean, he did what he had to do to get the W. I definitely think he won that fight. But he looked like there was a lot of flaws to his game. And I'll be straight up, when I first seen Danny Garcia in that fight, I wasn't thoroughly impressed, like, oh, this kid is the truth. But slowly but surely, he kept chipping away, kept doing things that made me into a believer. And that's my honest opinion. Like I said, when I seen Eric Morales, I was like, who's this? Who's this kid? Like, I mean, I just didn't see him defending the title and really blowing up like he did. But then again, he took on people like Amir Khan. He rematched Eric Morales and put his stamp on that fight in the rematch and knocked Eric Morales out. You could argue that Eric Morales is an old fighter. Eric Morales was flabby and sick, whatever you want to say. But at the same time, you got to keep in mind two things. One, Eric Morales is a legend. He's a living legend, a very seasoned fighter. And just because he looks out of shape, that doesn't take away what he has up top, which is his boxing knowledge, his knowledge of the game, ring generalship, and those types of things. And if you also remember, people like Pablo Cesar Cano and Marcos Maidana fought Eric Morales before, and they both went the distance with him. Much younger than Eric Morales, neither one of them knocked Morales out. Maidana went the distance, and Maidana is a known and feared puncher. and he went the distance with Eric Morales. So you got to give Danny Garcia credit. First of all, the fight took place, the rematch took place based on the rematch clause in Eric Morales' contract because he was the title holder. So Garcia had to fight him. A lot of fans get mad at Garcia, like, oh, why'd he fight Morales twice? He's only fought old bums. And I mean, Morales gave him a shot at the title, and there was a rematch clause, so he can't get out of that. I mean, if he wanted a shot at Morales' championship, which it made sense because that's what helped propel him in his career, he had to sign up for a rematch clause, and that's kind of what happened. So that fight was inevitable. He had to rematch him based on the contract that was worked up. And anyway, you got to give him credit for knocking Morales out because Marcos Maidana fought him 2 fights before the the fight with Danny Garcia, and Maidana, a known puncher, didn't knock out Eric Morales. Pablo Cesar Cano didn't knock out Eric Morales, so you got to give the man some credit, whether Morales was out of prime or old or whatever. And Zab Judah, I mean, Zab Judah was fighting at home, and he came with his A game. I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've seen Zab Judah lose to people, and I'm like, why the fuck did he lose to Carlos Baldomir? Why did he lose to Corey Spinks? And it was a different looking Zab. He looked very sharp. He looked focused. He sounded confident in his training, etc. So you got to give the man credit. As far as Lucas Matthysse, a fighter who, based on his power and his aura and his reputation, people are really afraid to give him a shot. And he's had to really take on whoever they put in front of him to build his name. I think Al Heyman picking up Lucas Matthysse was a good look for Lucas Mathisse's career, that partnership, because it looks like he's getting a little bit more respect under the Al Heyman brand. Al Heyman, as you guys know, he does a lot for the sport and represents a lot of the top talents in boxing. So let's take a look at Danny Garcia, Lucas Matthysse, and their resumes, and you tell me who you guys like, who has a better resume in your opinion. So Danny Garcia, he fought Nate Campbell. This was before Nate Campbell was really washed up. Nate Campbell, however, did have 8 losses by the time he fought Danny Garcia, including a loss to Victor Ortiz and Timothy Bradley. The Timothy Bradley fight was originally ruled a TKO, but it was later changed to a no contest. Danny Garcia also fought hard-hitting Kendall Holt, had some problems with him. At the point in which Danny Garcia fought Holt, Holt had 4 losses, including a unanimous decision loss to Timothy Bradley. And 2 of his 4 losses ended via TKO. So Danny Garcia went the distance. He didn't stop Kendall Holt. And again, Kendall Holt had 4 losses at the time he met up with Danny Garcia. And if you notice, Timothy Bradley beat a lot of these guys too, like Nate Campbell and Kendall Holt. So that's a reoccurring theme. Then you look at Lucas Matthysse. He fought Mike Dallas Jr., who lost 3 out of 5 of his previous fights, including a KO loss to Josecito Lopez. Don't get me wrong, the Mike Dallas Jr. fight was a fight that never really should have happened. Dallas Jr. was being trained by Virgil Hunter. He was a last-minute replacement. And Hank Lundy was the initial person Lucas Matthysse was supposed to fight. Lundy had problems with his management and had to withdraw or pulled out of the fight, and they needed a replacement. They wanted to keep the date. The venue was already booked. So they threw Mike Dallas Jr. in with the Sharks, and Lucas Matthysse tore his head off in the first round. So that was obviously a mismatch, but that's Mike Dallas Jr.'s record going into the fight. Lucas Matthysse also fought Lucigan Ajose, who was undefeated. Lucas Matthysse TKO'd him in the 10th. Good fight. Ajose tried, but he was always being bested, and it looked like it was kind of a matter of time unless Lucas Matthysse were to get worn down or extremely tired. It looked early on that he was besting Ajose, and it was pretty much a foregone conclusion unless, because Ajose does have a chin, unless Ajose was able to outlast him in the stamina department, it looked like he was bound to lose that fight. Lucas Matthysse also fought Humberto Soto, who had previously lost 7 times. He fought Devin Alexander in June of 2011. This was a controversial fight. This was also the same year that Devin Alexander lost to Timothy Bradley. He fought Timothy Bradley in January of 2011, and later fought Lucas Matthysse in June, and it ended in a controversial decision in favor of Devin Alexander. The fight took place in St. Louis, which is Devin Alexander's hometown. A lot of people protest and think Lucas Matthysse should have won. Um, and this was earlier in Lucas Mathisse's career. Um, Before that, Devin Alexander beat Juan Urango, Kotelnik, Junior Witter, DeMarcus Corley. Lucas Matthysse also has wins over DeMarcus Corley, who had a bunch of losses at the time in which he fought. Danny Garcia, if you look at his resume, he also fought Amir Khan, who had a knockout loss against Bradis Prescott back home in England. He had a tough fight with Marcos Maidana, where he struggled in the later rounds. Um, Amir Khan also beat Zab Judah, and Danny Garcia has the Zab Judah win most recently. So, in my opinion, their resumes are pretty much about the same. No, neither fighter's resume sticks out like maybe a Timothy Bradley, somebody who's just fought and beat everybody. There's blemishes on both fighters' resume. I think Zab Judah did enough to beat Lucas Matthysse in a very close fight. I have to rewatch the whole fight in its entirety to really assess if I would give the nod to Lucas or if I would give it to Zab. But off the top of my head, I think Zab Judah did just enough to win. Zab Judah started off strong. Lucas Matthysse had a slow start and picked up the pace as the fight went on. He knocked Judah down, and I think just because Lucas Matthysse was so young in his pro career, and that was probably the biggest opponent he had fought at the time, I just think Zab Judah did enough to win off the top of my head. And Lucas Matthysse started off a little bit too slow to win that. I think he should have beat Devin Alexander for sure. I thought he did enough to win that fight. He also knocked Devin Alexander down. But again, Danny Garcia, Lucas Matthysse, to me, their resumes are about the same. There's nobody who just stands out like, oh, he had fights with X, Y, and Z, and then the other person. I mean, they've had about the same level of talent. And I think both fighters they really have similar resumes in terms of the talent pool in which they faced. Lucas Matthysse, his biggest win is obviously Lamont Peterson. He did that in a destructive fashion. He got him out of there in 3 rounds. And to me, that's comparable to Danny Garcia's win against Amir Khan. I'm not saying Amir Khan and Lamont Peterson are the same, but Amir Khan and Lamont Peterson faced each other and had a tough competitive fight with each other. And the only difference being, I think Danny Garcia was a high underdog in his fight with Amir Khan, and he got Amir Khan out of there in the 4th round. He had him hurt in the 3rd round. Versus the Lamont Peterson Lucas Matthysse fight. That fight was held at a catchweight, so neither person's title was at stake. He just plowed through Lamont Peterson and didn't get anything from it. So I think those, in terms of talent pool, those wins are pretty comparable. Again, Amir Khan fought Lamont Peterson. They had a tough, competitive, controversial fight, and Danny Garcia beat Khan. Lucas Matthysse beat Peterson. And I think they both beat those fighters in a similar fashion. I mean, one was stopped by TKO in the 3rd round. The other fighter was stopped in the 3rd or 4th round. Lucas took less punishment than Danny Garcia. Amir Khan did look sharp for the first couple of rounds. He like showed his speed and his fast hands in the first 2 rounds, and then he got caught up in the 3rd. So I think those are pretty comparable. So it just leads me to believe that these fighters have similar resumes in terms of the quality of opponent and opposition. Danny Garcia might get the slight edge because he's had more opportunities at a championship, like fighting Amir Khan for the belts. Eric Morales in the first fight, that was a title shot. Fighting a former world champion like Zab Judah. I don't know. And Zab Judah, it was a sharp look at Zab Judah, who stopped Vernon Paris, an undefeated fighter. So I would probably give a slight edge to Danny Garcia in the resume department. but not much. I think their resumes are pretty comparable. Again, neither fighter's resume is that much more superb, in my opinion, than the others. Um, Again, it's for a variety of different reasons. Lucas Matthysse, I think he's struggled to get fights based on his style and what he brings to the table. It's a high risk, low reward type of fight when you deal with the Lucas Matthysse, and he didn't have a big enough a name before he was signed to Al Heyman. I don't think his name to the common fan was big enough to the point where people wanted to give him a shot. But just like Gennady Golovkin, another hard hitter, they're building their brand and gaining more and more exposure as time goes on, and people are starting to like what they see and see the action-packed fighting style, and they're giving them more credit. So again, Danny Garcia maybe has a slight edge, but their resumes are really comparable in my opinion. Who do you think has the better resume in the sport, Danny Garcia versus Lucas Matthysse? Who do you think wins the fight? Let me know what you guys think. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.